Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Institute for Personal Development, where total consciousness is the new frontier. Kriya Yoga is the union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices that initiate this process.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Well, good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good on this pretty warm summer morning. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Well, I would like to thank the listeners for tuning in today. We have a great show coming up for you today on the Voice of Yoga. We will be talking about happiness. We will discuss happiness on a very basic level, also discussing the differences between worldly happiness, intellectual happiness, and eternal happiness. Now, Swami, I did this morning look up the word happiness in the dictionary, and there are two definitions I want to talk to you about. The first one states that happiness is the quality or state of being happy. And the second said that it means good fortune, pleasure, contentment, and joy. And then I decided I was going to look up the synonyms for the word happy, and the list included words such as joyous, joyful, cheerful, merry, contented, satisfied, blissful, successful, favorable, prosperous. I just think it's interesting to note that good fortune and prosperous are included with the word happy and happiness. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that's a big part of, the concept of happy is that it is the association typically between a symbol and a feeling. And so oftentimes the concept of happiness has to be associated with something. And I think on a fundamental level, to understand happiness, all you really have to do is look at an infant child, with its mother. And that pretty much defines happiness right there, because it really doesn't get any better than that. And what we basically do is we wean ourselves off of mother, and we start to assign other symbols, substances, circumstances, and situations that will be associated with that feeling. In yoga, the term is called contentment, santosha. This feeling that I'm okay, which is something that our physical bodies live in chronic anxiety. Our bodies are constantly seeking validation. But it's always associated with some symbol. And that's one of the things that we're always talking about here, that we all come in with a physical body, we all come in with desire, we all come in with needs. The problem with the programming and the patterning of our physical bodies is that we look typically initially for food, mother, or approval. So we are looking for something external. We're looking for something tangible to validate ourselves. And that becomes the driving force behind all of our addictions. That's basically why we smoke, why we drink, why we're compulsive about money, relationships, food, exercise, is because we've internalized these images in our bodies. And it's driven by the power of preservation and survival. It has all of the power. And so when you cross-examine it and you analyze it, the whole concept of differentiating between worldly happiness, intellectual happiness, and eternal happiness comes down to, what symbols did we internalize in our bodies? Because if you have tangible symbols, and you would experience what's called worldly happiness. If you are more linked with the realms of mind, the energy field associated with waves, then you would have a tendency to be more inclined for intellectual happiness. But if you are fortunate enough to desire the void or the nothing, then you would experience what's called eternal happiness. And the physics of these different energy fields, starts to reveal itself, based on the return that you get from it. Because we have talked about this in other shows, the whole thing of, reality being multidimensional. And, that two of the dimensions of reality are dualistic, meaning that nothing is whole, everything is in half. And then there's this absolute, this indivisible, unified field. And one of the things that we're all dealing with is this innate drive that we want to be whole, we want to be complete. But one of the biggest barriers to us actualizing this experience of wholeness is the pattern that our bodies come in with. That we're programmed to look for something tangible. And a lot of times, we use happiness as the barometer. Well, I'm happy, therefore God loves me. And it doesn't play like that. Because again, God isn't a person. God is an energy field. The underlying problem with the world today is not God's love for humanity. The underlying dynamic, the problem is humanity's love for God. Because we think God is a person, we think God is, an image that we believe in. And the physics of spirituality is where the thing falls apart. But there is very specific differences between worldly happiness, intellectual happiness, and eternal happiness. Just in the same way there is a difference between a human in the larvae state, a human in the chrysalis state, and a human in the adult state.
Can you just do us a quick favor and review those states that you just talked about, the larvae state, the chrysalis, and the butterfly state for our listeners?
Well, yeah, when you desire particles, then you are typically in the larvae state, which means your mind is small and your feelings are reduced to insatiable cravings. But you desire something tangible. And the characteristics of the human in the larvae state, we're careless, we're emotional, we're indulgent, we're excitable. Now, as we move from the larvae state into what I would call the human experience, now you draw from the realms of waves of mind, imagination, thoughts, which are also dualistic. They will also keep your mind small and your feelings will be reduced to insatiable cravings. Your characteristics will be that you are careful, you are intelligent, you're ambitious, but you're abstinent. You're literally struggling with the things that you were craving when you were in the larvae state. And when the human is now in the adult state, that is when you desire the void or the nothing. And the characteristics of the human in the adult state, you're carefree, you're wise, you're liberated, and enthusiastic. And of course, the origins of the word enthusiasm means with theos. You're in tandem with this, concept of a divinity. You're in tandem with God.
Okay, I have I have a problem for you. There's a really sweet gal that I work with, and she said to me the other day that by the time she gets done paying her bills, for the week or for the month, she has like $20 left. And therefore, she can't be happy because she's at this point in her life where, she thought by now, at the age that she's at, that she would be married, have 2 kids, be in love, and, have this sense of security, financial security, and she doesn't have any of those things. So somebody who is living, I guess, so to speak, hand to mouth in her case and paycheck to paycheck, what can I tell her, to get her or to help her change how she thinks? What do I do to try to help her get on the road of happiness?
Well, the secret to life, and this, of course, is supported by all the scriptures that you read, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Vedas, the Upanishads, when you boil them down, is really to put God first. That you want to, first of all, understand what God is, because that's one of the most misunderstood concepts on the planet today. Because, again, we think God is a person. We think God is this cosmic puppeteer monitoring our conduct, rewarding and punishing our behavior. But in truth, God is the force right now supporting our lives. Now, very few of us are reveling in the availability of this very subtle source of sustenance. And part of it is because of the programming or the patterning that our bodies come in with. We're looking for something more tangible. So the first order of business is we have to separate from our dependency upon something tangible and then realign ourselves with something that's invisible and intangible. And then, of course, to internalize that as a symbol that will produce the feeling in your body that you're happy. Because that's all it is. It's a simple association between a symbol and a feeling. It's programming. It's patterning. That's why you have to work with your physical body. It's not just an intellectual accomplishment. The concept of literally rebirthing your body in the life force, is not some abstract bit of scholasticism, but it's the truth. It's the fact of life. It translates into learn to use what you need to produce the feeling you're happy. That's what the books are telling us. Now when you're accustomed to using what you do need as a symbol to produce the feeling you're happy, just look at what you might have done for yourself. Because if you're longing for something that is not inside your grasp, and you're disappointed and you're frustrated, that's an internal problem. But if you've trained your mind to look for what you really do need, and every time you take a breath, it reinforces a feeling in your body that you're happy, that you're special, that you're good enough, look at what you just did for yourself. Because now you've got a healthy attitude. The other thing that starts to happen with this internal connection is that you believe that you're good enough. You're no longer drawing from fear and limitation. You're now drawing from truth and wholeness. So not only do you have a healthy attitude because you're connected to something that's pure, powerful, and sacred, but you're behind the forms. Now you've discovered that you have this thing called the mind. And so if you want to affect changes in your outside world, you start to change your thoughts. Does that help answer your question? Do you see how that works?
I think I do see how that works. Well, I have a question/comment to make. Now, I know yesterday was your birthday, so a happy birthday to you. But what I wanted to say or ask is, why do you think we say that to each other? Why do we wish each other a happy birthday? And part two of this question is, did you indeed have a happy birthday?
Well, to answer your question, I did have a happy birthday. And why we say it, I think it's just a custom. I don't know. It's a celebration of the beginning of, this incarnation. I'm sure there's deeper meaning behind the whole thing, but I think spreading happiness is a good thing. But again, I think it's also important to be able to understand that happiness isn't the end-all, be-all. The secret to life is that you want to be happy with what you need, what you really do need, your number one need. And, when that becomes your new drug of choice, when that becomes your new symbol for validation, then something magical does happen to us, that we call yoga, this union of the individual with this other source of sustenance. And then, of course, now you're in the realms of eternal happiness. The fairy tale concept of living happily ever after. And it's not because of anything external. So I think that's the vantage point that comes with it. It doesn't negate what's going on in the outside world. You don't become senselessly optimistic or stupid. You just have an expanded sense of awareness. But your inner environment, that feeling initially that was contentment does start to evolve into bliss, wonder, and awe. This feeling is growing with the expansion of your identity. So there is a very different return on your effort. It's a very different experience. Humans in the adult state, just have benefits that humans in the larvae state don't even know exist.
What is the I think what I'll do is I'll ask you this question after our break. I didn't realize the time here. So listeners, we'll be with you in just a moment. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor. We'll be back shortly.
If you are looking for a Samadhi-based experience, IPD Kriya Yoga has the goods. A complete yoga program that includes the practices and the process. Kriya Yoga Theory 1 live classes and videos. Get your arms around the spiritual science of Kriya Yoga.
The intention of why we practice is to embody the spirit, feel connected to the life force.
Kriya Yoga Asana live classes and videos. A cosmically engineered system of exercises to initiate apotheosis. A system of exercises engineered for dining and dancing at the Cosmic Ballroom. Kriya Yoga Theory 2 live classes and videos. A practice in open form designed to facilitate positive growth of consciousness. Get your Labyrinth video.
I find the positive side of it is pulling a lot of things together.
Kriya Yoga Mantra and Meditation. With repetition comes absorption. Pray on prana and become divine.
At the same time, we all have a unique talent and gift to give back to the universe.
Private sessions. The mysteries of the universe have always been handed down verbally from teacher to student. Call or click now and get started. 603-929-0303 or www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste.
Purna Maria Purna Meva Vashishate.
Well, welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you are listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. Okay, Swami, let me get to that question that I had before we took our break. Is there a correlation between how we feel physically and our level of happiness?
Well, I think there can be. I think there's direct association between health and happiness. There can be. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're happy because we're using what we need to validate ourselves. That there's a difference, like we've been saying, between being happy because I'm desirable as opposed to being happy because I am content with nothing is a very different dynamic. And you can be relatively healthy in both circumstances. So I don't know if that could be, again, a trustworthy barometer as to, what source of sustenance am I drawing from. But I think one of the things that you will find is that with your connection to your divinity, that good physical health is usually a pretty dependable byproduct of that. Because just look at all of the things you have to do to make that connection. You know what I mean? You've got to make changes in how you think, in how you breathe, in what you're drinking, and what you're eating, and how you're exercising. So it is a prescription that if you really looked across the board, that would support excellent physical health. But to get eternal happiness as a result, it was a pretty good exchange, I think, for your efforts.
Do you think if somebody had, a physical ailment, whatever it might be, and they went through the steps to become happy, do you think that potentially that they could, for lack of a better word, cure themselves?
Well, to answer your question, yes. And I think the real word there is heal. The origins of the word heal means to be whole. It becomes the dynamics of the miracle in the Bible. Jesus says in the Bible, it has nothing to do with me, it's your belief. The thought is an energy, and it's capable of producing effects, but it's all measurable based on the amount of strength we emit it with. So the two things that have to be in place in order to create this concept of a miracle, the first order of business is you have to believe that you're good enough. And then the second is you have to ask for what you want in the language that would give you the return that you're looking for. So you have to believe you're good enough, and then you have to emit the thought with the power of intention. And, that's one of the things that, we work on consistently with our approach to yoga. It's when you rebirth your body in the life force and you believe you're good enough, then you've got the hardware. Now, the next thing is working with your labyrinth, working with your chakra system and programming your mind with imagery, that is of the positive format. Now you're emitting thoughts with the power of intention because you believe they're good enough. Because you could be connected and still asking for undesirable circumstances and situations and still perpetuating undesirable conditions. So to answer your question, yeah, I think, our program, accommodates that probably better than any I've seen anywhere.
I believe that we all have a responsibility, to uplift the consciousness of the world, so to speak. How does any one person, individual or a group, how do we spread happiness?
Well, I would quote the Buddha on that as you become the change you want to see. It's the Chinese proverb, you get the light in your soul. That, when there's light in the soul, there's beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, then there's harmony in the home. When there's harmony in the home, there's honor in the nation. And when there's honor in the nation, there's peace in the world. So you start locally, but then you can start to see how it will affect things globally. And like we talked about last week, I mean, it's the 100-monkey theory. You just, one person at a time, as they start to grow psychologically and spiritually, it makes it that much easier for the next person because we're affecting critical mass, the collective consciousness.
So it's not just about paying it forward. I do a good deed for somebody, then they do a good deed for somebody, and they do a good deed for somebody. It's really all about our own individual connection to the spirit is what's going to be the domino effect.
Yeah, that's where I think our religions kind of misled us. It's not about conduct. It's not about doing good deeds. It's all about what energy field do I draw from. The problem with the world, like I said, is not God's love for humanity. The problem is humanity's love for God. And then, when you read the Bible, that's why it's all about false gods. People who are drawing from a source of sustenance that is limiting, but they think that they're drawing from this unified field. That was what von Goethe said, remember? None are more hopelessly in prison than those who falsely believe they're free. And so that's where it becomes even more difficult to help open people up to these concepts. That's why the celebrity spiritual community has become such a huge barrier. It's almost what I refer to as the Antichrist, of today.
It seems that every show that we've had, it seems that it always comes down to these three really little but crucial words: is put God first.
Yeah, well, that's the secret to life. But again, what is God and what is first? And if you can connect those two dots, first is what makes me happy. That feeling, it's my body needs something to validate itself. And if you can use the concept of your number one need as that symbol, then your panel will be wired. You will get this light in your soul. But if there's only one way that it goes right, and everything else was what they called the sin, it missed the mark.
Well, in closing, I would like to invite the listeners out there to visit our website. You can follow us on Pinterest or Twitter, Facebook. Keep those comments, questions, curiosities coming. Swami does enjoy hearing from you, and we'll respond to you in turn. Well, next week, we have an interesting program in the light of Independence Day coming up. We're going to be discussing independence and what is the meaning of freedom. So that should be very interesting. And I also remind the listeners out there that we do have a spiritual advance program that has started and can start any time for each individual, but it also ends in a retreat in Costa Rica next year. So with that, Swami, any final thoughts or comments about our program today or next week?
Yeah, just to be happy. I'm good with that, Use what you need to produce the feeling you're happy. That works. And I wish everybody a good day, and namaste.
Thank you, Swami. And I want to thank the listeners for tuning into our program today, The Voice of Yoga. I am Lisa Winton, and with me is Swami Jayananda. We'll be signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.